A devious route. I was mobilised for Liberty Hall, but I had been sent back to the college to pick up some things that had been forgotten. And when I came to the place of mobilisation, they were gone. I went to the Liberty Hall and found that the regular forces who had been called up had left there for the GPO. So I got hold of a fella who was a sort of a hanger-on, and I asked him would he go to the GPO and get a message to Pearse that I was there, because Pearse not alone was Commander-in-Chief, but he was also my captain, the captain of my company. And this fella came back with a verbal instruction to me that I was to stay there, put the place in a state of defence, and prepare a line of retreat out of it. We had got lectures on street fighting for quite a while in our company area, and after getting rid of a whole lot of fellas there who were of no use to anybody, we managed to get the doors closed, and we began to build barricades in the windows, and then to drive a line of retreat through the houses at the back up towards O'Connell Street. So while we were at this, another messenger came to say that I was to report at once with anybody who belonged to any company to report to the GPO. So we had an American fellow called John Kilgallen, an American-born lad there, and he came on the scene and he was having a good laugh at us. And I said, John, would you take my shovel for a while? I want to go up and get a drink of water. So I handed him a shovel and disappeared. I don't know what happened to him after. He was looking for my blood all over the place. But when I came out of there, then I went upstairs and reported to Pearse.
What sort of mood was Pearse in?
Well, he was rather pensive, you see. Connolly was lying on a stretcher right beside him, and Plunkett was there also, Joseph Plunkett, and he had a lot of bandages around his neck. He was TB, I think he had glandular trouble or somewhere. And there were several others of the leaders, and being a buck private, I didn't want to get too involved there, so he told me that some of my company was up on the roof and I'd better join them. And I didn't see him again then until the end of the week. On the second day there was providentially there was a very heavy fall of rain, and didn't do me much good because I developed rheumatism out of it that I have to the present day. And towards the evening I asked my platoon commander if I could go down below and try and get rid of these pains in my back. And I went to where the kitchen was. It was on the top floor, and there was a grand big fire there, and I had my back up against it when Desmond Fitzgerald, later a Minister of Defence in the government, came along and threw me out. He was a quartermaster in the GPO. I went downstairs then, and somebody thoughtlessly left a lovely woolen blanket on a table. I wrapped myself up in this and got under the table and went to sleep. And I could hear him bawling before I did go to sleep, "Where's my blanket?"
What was the end like for you at the post office, and describe carrying Connolly if you would?
Well, actually Samuel Riley and I stuck at our posts up on the top, although the others had been ordered away, until Billy Pearse himself came along and was very annoyed with us and insisted on us going down. He followed afterwards. So by this time they had got quite a number of the lads across from the side door in Henry Street to Moore Lane, which lies between Moore Street and O'Connell Street. And quite a number of them came under fire from Jervis Street, down near where the hospital is there. One fellow got the heel of his shoe knocked off in front of me. And we got in there, and it takes a left-hand turn then towards Moore Street. And right between the turn and Moore Street, there was a right-angle lane leading up towards the Rotunda Hospital, and they had a couple of machine guns mounted somewhere in the Rotunda Hospital, and they were blazing away. Actually they had blown a hole in the side of a wall, and in order to get across the lane we had to pull out an old cab out of a lock-up place and fill it with anything we could get our hands on and push it across this lane and build all around it as best we could before we got across the lane. Well, then some fellas who had been early on the job and the Moore Street end tried to get into one of the houses there to work their way through the houses, and the silly fella put a rifle to the lock and killed an old man inside. But they got the door open and we went through then, and we began the usual way to bore a hole on this level, and then the next house we came to, we bored a hole on the next level. And we'd actually got up towards the top of what is now O'Reilly Parade. But right in the middle we had to pass through where the GHQ had been established. But while I was going in the end door, no, first of all I slept the night behind the barricade. There was a barricade into Moore Street. And when I woke the next morning, I found myself in a loft. Somebody must have got me by the arm. I was fast asleep. When I reported after my sleep in the loft, Jim Ryan got hold of me and said, "I have a job for you." And he took me in and showed me Connolly on the stretcher and said, "You take that corner," which I did. And then he said, "Lift." We lifted and we tried to make our way up the stairs, which was very narrow and very steep. And to get the stretcher then onto the next flight, we had to lift the back end of it to as far as our arm would extend. Then I went roaming because I was very hungry, and I came across a crowd of fellows who had found a basin full of eggs somewhere. And a bit of a dispute arose as to whether the eggs should be cooked or eaten raw. And there was a vote, and the vote went in favour of cooking them, so a fire had to be started. And as soon as the fire started, somebody lobbed a rifle grenade down on top of us, and that put an end to the cooking. And I left them to the eggs because I didn't fancy them raw, and I went on to a place called Norton's. I think it's still there, a shop, and in the window of this Norton's, it had quite big windows in it, I saw a shelf with bottled pears in it. And I was reaching for the bottled pears when the whole window came in on top of me. Somebody had spotted me from the top of the street. It wasn't very far from the top. And I got out of there, and I was corralled then by a man called J.J. Welsh, well-known figure in the movement from Cork. And he said, "I want you to go with this party." And I didn't know what he was referring to, and I went up with him up to the end house next to O'Reilly Parade, and here I saw a whole crowd of fellas, some of them sitting there half asleep, some of them with their beads out saying their prayers. George Plunkett, son of Count Plunkett, apparently was the commander of the expedition, and the idea was we'd go out into O'Reilly Parade, dart round the corner and try and rush the barricade at the top, which would have been a suicide, complete suicide, and we all knew it. But luckily for us, somebody told headquarters, I think it must have been Pearse, what Welsh was up to, and he countermanded the order. And shortly after that, the surrender came.